Hey man, listen, I don't talk about this much. Not because it's classified or anything dramatic like that. No, most of it isn't. It's just that when I try to explain it to people who weren't there, it sounds like some bullshit war story. But you asked, and you're one of the few I can shoot straight with, so here goes. I'm not allowed to name the place. Let's just say it's one of those spots out in the middle of nowhere, baked into the American Southwest, where the Army runs its secret desert warfare training. Not the big public ones you hear about. No flags, no signs, no welcome to hell banners. Just endless sand, rock, and heat that hits you like a wall the second you step off the truck. We rolled in on these unmarked Humvees, engines humming low, no radios blaring, no bullshit playlist like you'd expect on a road trip, just silence, broken by the occasional crunch of tires on gravel. The air was already shimmering when we crossed what I guess was the gate. Really just a chain-link fence with razor wire and a couple of guards who didn't even look up as we passed. Heat waves rippled off the ground like the whole world was breathing heavy. Daytime temps pushing 120 easy, and that's before the wind kicks up the dust. I'd been through some tough schools before. Airborne, Ranger stuff, urban ops, and mock cities. I thought I was ready. Thought I'd seen enough to handle whatever they threw. But pulling up to that compound, man, it was different. No parade field, no barracks with AC blasting. Just low concrete buildings half buried in sand. Tents flapping in the breeze, and a horizon that went on forever without a single tree or cloud to break it up. The cadre didn't greet us with speeches or motivation, just a quiet fall in from the lead instructor, a grizzled sergeant major with eyes that looked permanently tired, like the desert had worn him down years ago. He didn't yell, didn't need to. His voice was low, flat, like he'd said the same words 100 times and knew half of us wouldn't listen anyway. "This isn't about making you heroes," he said, scanning the group. "This is about showing you what happens when the desert wins, and it usually does." We were a mix, some fresh out of basic, thinking this was just another advanced course to pad the resume. Others, like me, with a few deployments under the belt, figuring we'd breeze through. A couple guys even cracked jokes as we unloaded gear, something about beach vacation without the ocean. I didn't laugh. Something about the place already felt off, like it didn't give a damn about your rank, your experience, or how tough you thought you were. That first night, we bunked in these old tents that smelled of dust and old sweat. No lights after 2,200 hours, just the wind howling outside and the temperature dropping fast, from furnace to freezer in hours. I lay there listening to the sand pattering against the canvas, thinking about what the SM had said. This wasn't real combat, no enemy shooting back, but it was designed to simulate failure, to put you in situations where everything goes wrong, gear breaks, water runs out, decisions bite you in the ass, and see who cracks first. I wondered, lying there in the dark, if it'd be me. I'd always prided myself on being steady under pressure, but places like this, they don't care about your past wins. The desert just waits, patient, unforgiving. If a real desert war kicked off tomorrow, and who knows, it might, who among us would hold up? Who'd adapt, and who'd get ground down until there's nothing left? That's the question that hung over everything from day one, and man, it only got heavier from there. We didn't drive through a gate so much as we just crossed a line. One minute the road was cracked asphalt cutting through empty scrubland, the next it was dirt track, and the fence appeared on both sides, chain link topped with concertina wire. No signs, no unit patches, nothing. A couple of MPs in the guard shack gave the driver a lazy salute and waved us through. That was it. No ceremony, no welcome to the suck, just the sudden feeling that we'd left the regular army behind. The compound was smaller than I expected. A cluster of tan buildings bleached by the sun, a few rows of GP medium tents, a motor pool with dust-covered Humvees and a couple of those old M939 trucks parked in the shade of camouflage netting. Everything looked temporary, like it could be packed up and gone in a day if someone higher up decided the place had served its purpose. The only thing that felt permanent was the sand. It was everywhere, piled against walls, drifting across the gravel paths, finding its way into every seam of your uniform the second you stepped out. We dismounted in silence. Packs hit the ground with dull thuds. The heat was already brutal, even though it wasn't noon yet. The air smelled like hot metal and baked earth. No birds, no insects buzzing, just the low whine of the desert wind. That's when I first saw the lead instructor up close. We called him Sergeant Major Reyes, though nobody ever used his first name. Mid-50s maybe, lean the way long-distance runners are lean, skin like old leather. His eyes were the color of faded desert camo, and they didn't blink much. He stood there in faded DCUs with the sleeves rolled down despite the heat, hands clasped behind his back, watching us like he'd already seen every mistake we were about to make. He didn't raise his voice, just waited until the shuffling stopped, then spoke. "You're here because someone thinks you might be useful in a desert fight someday. That's their opinion. Mine starts at 0. This place doesn't have a name on any map you'll ever see. It doesn't need one. Your job for the next few weeks is simple. Do exactly what you're told, when you're told, and nothing more. Questions?" A hand went up near the back. Some young specialist, baby-faced, still had that new army shine. Sergeant Major, what's the training cycle look like? Like, what phases are we?" Reyes cut him off without moving a muscle. "Phase 1 is shutting up and listening. We'll let you know when you've passed it." A couple of guys toward the front chuckled under their breath. I knew the type. Thought this was just another school, another block to check for promotion points. I'd been that guy once. I didn't laugh. We got assigned tents, 8 to a tent, old canvas that flapped like sails in the wind. My rack was next to a staff sergeant named Alvarez, quiet guy from Arizona, grew up on the res, said he'd spent half his childhood in places hotter than this. Across from me was a cocky lieutenant fresh out of Benning named Harper, already complaining about the lack of Wi-Fi. And then there was this private first class, Kowalski, big kid from Chicago, built like a linebacker, talked a big game about how he'd crushed selection for 75th, but washed out on a medical. He was the one cracking most of the jokes. That first afternoon, they kept it light, just admin stuff. Draw gear, get sized for desert boots that actually fit, turn in your phones and anything with GPS. Reyes walked the lines while we stood there in the sun, sweat running down our backs, and every now and then he'd stop in front of someone and just stare for a few seconds. Not threatening, just measuring. When he got to me, he paused longer than usual. "You look like you've been through some schools," he said. It wasn't a compliment. "Yes, Sergeant Major." He nodded once, like he'd filed something away, and moved on. Later, after chow, some kind of reheated MRE slop served in a tent with no sides, we sat around on ammo crates while the sun dropped. A few guys were still treating it like summer camp. Kowalski was holding court, telling stories about bar fights back home, how nothing out here could be worse than a Chicago winter. Harper was nodding along, adding his own officer school anecdotes. I didn't join in. I was watching the horizon, the way the light turned the dunes blood red before it died. Alvarez sat down next to me, offered half a cigarette, even though smoking wasn't technically allowed yet. "You feel it already?" he asked quietly. "Feel what?" "That this place doesn't give a damn whether we pass or fail. It just wants to see what we're made of when nobody's watching." I took the cigarette. Didn't light it, just held it. "Yeah, I feel it." That night the wind picked up hard, rattling the tent poles like bones. I lay there listening to Kowalski snore and Harper mutter in his sleep about signal strength, and I realized something. This place didn't need us to believe in it, didn't need motivational posters or battle cries. It only needed us to obey. Everything else, the toughness, the teamwork, the survival, was going to be taken from us piece by piece, whether we agreed to give it or not. I didn't sleep much.
By the end of day 2, they had us out on the sand before the sun was even up. Reveille wasn't a bugle or a recording. It was Reyes walking between the tents at 04:30 a.m., flicking on a red lens flashlight and saying in that same flat voice, "On the line in 10. No yelling, no need. We scrambled anyway. We formed up in the dark outside the tents, boots already full of grit even though we'd only been there 36 hours. The air was cold, cold enough that your breath hung in front of your face, but you could feel the promise of what was coming. The desert doesn't ease into the day, it flips a switch. They marched us out to a flat stretch a couple clicks from the compound. No ranges, no pop-up targets, no live fire. Just open sand, a few low dunes, and some spray-painted rocks marking boundaries. The first thing they did was make us dump our canteens, completely empty, and hand them over for inspection. Then they issued us new ones, 2 one-quart canteens each, filled to the very top, weighed on a scale in front of us so we couldn't cheat. That was our water for the day. No more until 1800 hours. I remember thinking, okay, it's hot, but 2 quarts is doable. I've humped worse in worse places. Big mistake. The desert out there isn't the pretty rolling dunes shit you see in movies. It's mostly hard-packed dirt mixed with fine silt that gets into everything. When the wind picks up, and it always does by mid-morning, that silt turns into airborne sandpaper. It strips the oil off your rifle in hours. It clogs the bolt carrier if you don't keep the dust cover closed every second you're not shooting. It works its way into the magazines and makes the followers stick. We learned all that the hard way. They started us with basic movement drills, bounding overwatch across open ground, low crawl through shallow wadis, setting up hasty fighting positions with nothing but an entrenching tool and whatever rocks you could stack. Simple stuff on paper, but at 110 degrees by 0900 a.m., with the ground radiating heat back up at you, everything slows down. Your heart rate climbs just standing still. Sweat doesn't cool you, it evaporates so fast it leaves salt crust on your skin. The rifles got hot enough that you couldn't hold the handguards without gloves. Optics fogged from the inside. The fine dust worked its way into the adjustment turrets and made zeroing damn near impossible. One guy's ACOG actually seized up. Turret wouldn't turn at all. Reyes didn't replace it, just said, figure it out. Then there was the wind. Not steady, gusty. 1 minute calm, next minute 30-knot blasts that turned the air into a brown haze. Visibility dropped to 50 meters. You couldn't hear verbal commands. Hand signals got lost in the swirl. And the sand got in your nose, your ears, your mouth. You tasted it with every breath. We broke for lunch around 1300 hours, half an MRE each, eaten standing up in whatever shade your own body cast. No sitting, no leaning against packs. Reyes stood resting on your gear teaches bad habits. By then, my 2 quarts were down to maybe half. I was rationing sips, trying to make it last. But your body doesn't negotiate in that heat. It just takes what it needs. Alvarez, the quiet staff sergeant from Arizona, didn't seem bothered the way the rest of us were. He moved slower than anyone, deliberate, like he was saving every motion. When we stopped, he'd pour a tiny bit of water into his shemagh, drape it over his neck, and let evaporation do the work. Kowalski, the big kid from Chicago, was already red-faced, chugging water like it was free. Harper, the lieutenant, kept checking his watch, muttering about heat injury thresholds and Army regs. He quoted FM 2118 like it was going to change physics. That afternoon, they ran us through vehicle recovery drills with a Humvee deliberately bogged axle deep in soft sand. No tow strap, no winch, just recovery mats, shovels, and whatever muscle we had left. The metal in the truck was too hot to touch barehanded. Every time you dug, the hole filled back in almost as fast. 4 hours later, we had it out, but half the platoon was staggering. One guy, specialist from Oregon, who'd never seen real heat, started dry heaving. Reyes didn't stop the evolution, just told the kid's team leader to get him water from someone else's canteen. Lesson delivered without a word. By sunset, we marched back in, boots full of sand, uniforms stiff with dried sweat, rifles filthy. No one was joking anymore. Even Kowalski was quiet. We got our canteens refilled at 1800 hours. Mine was bone dry. I'd run out 2 hours earlier and hadn't said a word. Pride, I guess, or it's stupidity. That night in the tent, I lay there listening to the wind again, tasting grit in my teeth, no matter how many times I rinsed. There were no shots fired that day, no enemy, just the desert doing what it does, grinding you down, slow, steady, relentless. I realized the field manuals don't prepare you for this part. They talk about heat categories and work-rest cycles, wet bulb readings, all that clinical stuff. But they don't tell you what it feels like when your pulse is hammering in your ears and every breath is hot dust and you still have 6 hours of work ahead. They don't tell you how fast the math changes when water stops being a logistic and starts being the only thing keeping you upright. Alvarez rolled over on his cot, voice low in the dark. "Tomorrow's worse," he said. Not bragging, just fact. I believed him.
Up to that point, we'd been getting our canteens topped off every evening, no questions asked. 2 quarts per man, sometimes a little extra if you were on fire guard or pulling extra duty. It wasn't plenty, but it was predictable. You could plan around it. You learned to sip, not gulp, to wet your lips before swallowing, to pour a capful over your wrists when the heat peaked. Then Reyes gathered us at 05 a.m., still dark, flashlights painting red circles on our faces. "From now on," he said, "water is a team resource. You get 1 5-gallon can per 4-man element, issued at the start of each evolution. How you divide it is up to you. When it's gone until the next issue. Could be 12 hours, could be 24. No emergencies. No medevac for dehydration unless you're unconscious. Make your choices count." He didn't explain why, just turned and walked away. We broke into our chalks, 4-man teams they had assigned on day 1. My element was me, Alvarez, Kowalski, and Harper the lieutenant. 1 5-gallon jerry can between us, 20 liters total. 80 liters if you thought in terms of what a human body actually needs in 120-degree heat while humping 40 pounds of gear over broken terrain. Except we weren't getting 80, we were getting 20. And that had to cover drinking, cooking, if we were lucky, and any hygiene we were stupid enough to attempt. First thing we did was weigh it. 19.8 liters after the cadre filled it. Someone had already skimmed a little. Standard. Harper immediately wanted to portion it out evenly. 5 liters each, carried in our personal canteens, plus whatever camelbacks we had. Democratic, fair, the officer way. Alvarez shook his head. "We don't burn water at the same rate. Big guy here," he nodded at Kowalski, "is going to sweat twice what I do just standing still. We keep it centralized. Issue is needed. That way we control it." Kowalski laughed, but it was nervous. "Come on, man. I'm not going to steal anybody's water." Nobody answered that. We ended up compromising. 3 liters per man up front in personal containers. The rest stayed in the jerry can under Harper's control because he was the ranking guy. Seemed reasonable at the time. The evolution that day was a long movement. 12 clicks out to a simulated patrol base, dig in, conduct a leader's recon, then move another 8 clicks to an exfil point. All on foot, no vehicles, full kit. Rifle, plates, ammo, radio, the usual. The sun came up angry. By the 3rd hour, Kowalski was already hitting his canteen hard. You could hear it sloshing less with every break. He wasn't gulping dramatically, he was trying to hide it, but the math doesn't lie. Big frame, high metabolism, Chicago kid not used to dry heat. He was pouring it out through his pores faster than the rest of us. Alvarez moved like a ghost, slow and smooth, boots barely raising dust. He'd wet a corner of his shemag and tie it bandit style over his nose and mouth, cutting down on water loss from breathing. I tried to copy him. Harper kept checking the map, doing land nav the hard way with compass and pace count, sweating over the details. Around noon, we hit a low spot between dunes, maybe 10 degrees of shade from a rock overhang. We dropped packs for 5 minutes. Kowalski went straight for the jerry can. Harper stopped him. "You still got your personal 3, right?" "Yeah, but it's hot as shit. I'm almost out." "Drink what you have first. We don't touch the reserve until everyone's dry." Kowalski stared at him for a second, jaw tight. Then he shrugged, too big a shrug, and went back to his pack. But I saw his hand shake a little when he picked up his canteen. 2 hours later, he was out. Admitted it quietly while we were filling sandbags at the patrol base, voice hoarse. "I'm dry." We looked at the jerry can. Maybe 7 liters left for 4 guys, and we still had the long leg back, plus whatever night evolution they sprang on us. Harper did the math out loud. "We each take 1 liter now, save the rest for tomorrow morning." Alvarez didn't say anything, just looked at Kowalski, then at me. I knew what he was thinking. Kowalski was starting to sway a little when he stood up too fast,
pupils wide even in the glare. Early signs. If we stuck to equal shares, he'd be in trouble by nightfall. If we gave him more, one of us would pay later. I made the call before I could talk myself out of it. Give him 2 liters. I'll take half a liter now, save the rest of mine. Harper started to protest, something about setting precedent, but Alvarez cut him off. He's right. Kid's 250 pounds easy. He drops, we're carrying him plus his gear. That costs more water in the long run. So we poured Kowalski 2 liters into his canteens. He didn't say thanks, just nodded and turned away like he was ashamed. By dusk, we were moving again, and I was down to half a liter. Mouth like cotton, headaches starting behind my eyes. Every swallow felt like stealing from tomorrow. That night, they kept us out. Ambush drills in the dark. No fires, no hot chow. We lay in the sand, sharing the last of the jerry can. 3 liters between 4 men. Kowalski took the smallest sip of all. Later, when the others were asleep, he leaned over from his poncho liner. "Hey," he whispered, "I fucked up today." I didn't answer right away, just stared up at the stars, sharp and cold and a million miles away. I told him to shut up and sleep, but inside I was pissed at him for burning through his share, at Harper for playing it by the book, at myself for thinking I could fix it with a gesture. Mostly at the desert for turning something as basic as water into a weapon that made us measure each other's worth in ounces. I lay there tasting dust and salt, wondering how many more days they'd let this go on before someone broke, and hating how part of me was already doing the new math. Who in the team could I afford to lose if it came down to it?
By the end of the first week, we'd settled into 4 distinct types in the platoon. Not ranks or MOS, something deeper. The desert was stripping the varnish off everyone, and what was left underneath wasn't pretty or uniform. It was just human. First type was Harper, the lieutenant. Early 20s, West Point ring still shiny, always quoting doctrine like it was scripture. He wasn't a bad guy, just convinced that if he followed every regulation to the letter, reality would eventually comply. He kept a tiny notebook where he wrote down heat category guidelines, work-rest cycles, exact paces per 100 meters. When the wind erased our footprints in seconds, he'd get visibly frustrated, like the desert was personally disrespecting the infantry officer basic course. He believed in systems, fair shares, clear orders, accountability. Out here, those things were starting to feel like luxuries we couldn't afford. Then there was Kowalski. Big, loud when he was comfortable, quiet when he wasn't. Chicago Polish stock, grew up in a neighborhood where you proved yourself with fists or football pads. He'd enlisted to get away from some trouble back home, or maybe to find bigger trouble, I never asked. He treated the whole course like a test of manhood. If he could just gut it out, refuse to quit, he'd come out the other side respected. Problem was, the desert didn't give participation trophies. After the water evolution, he walked around like a kicked dog, ashamed he'd needed help, angry he couldn't power through on willpower alone. You could see him trying twice as hard now, volunteering for every heavy task, like if he carried enough ammo cans, the place would finally acknowledge him. Alvarez was the opposite. Mid-30s, staff sergeant, quiet to the point people thought he was stuck up at first. Navajo, raised out near Window Rock, where summer hits 110, and water is always a conversation. He didn't talk much about home, but you felt it in the way he moved. Never hurried, never wasted motion. He'd watch a situation for 10 minutes before acting, then do the exact right thing with half the effort the rest of us burned. Where Harper saw problems to solve with checklists, Alvarez saw patterns to flow around. He didn't volunteer for extra work, he just did what needed doing before anyone noticed it needed doing. Some guys thought he was lazy. I started to realize he was the only one conserving anything out here. And then there was me. I didn't fit neatly. I'd been enlisted longer than Harper had been in uniform, had a couple combat patches, thought that gave me an edge. I prided myself on being steady, good in a firefight, calm when plans went to shit. But this place was exposing something else. I hated not being in control.
When Kowalski ran out of water, I jumped in with a solution because sitting there watching him suffer felt worse than thirst. When Harper started over-planning, I'd bite my tongue, but inside I was seething at how slow it made us. I told myself I was being practical. Truth was, I needed to feel useful, like I was the one holding things together. The desert didn't need me to hold anything. We saw the differences play out every day. One afternoon, they had us building a vehicle hide under camo netting. Wind was gusting hard, netting kept billowing up like a sail. Harper wanted us to stake it down in a perfect grid pattern, every corner tied off at exact 90-degree angles per the TC 31-29 Special Operations Vehicle Concealment Manual or whatever. Took forever. Sand kept pulling the stakes loose anyway. Alvarez watched for a minute, then quietly started piling rocks along the edges instead of staking. Worked better, faster, used what the ground gave us. Harper noticed, got tight-lipped. "That's not doctrinal," he said. Alvarez shrugged. "It's holding." Kowalski, trying to prove he was still pulling weight, started hauling bigger rocks than necessary, 50, 60 pounds each, muscling them across the sand alone when two guys could have done it easier. By the end, he was staggering, but he wouldn't ask for help. I stood there refereeing in my head, wanting Harper to loosen up, wanting Kowalski to pace himself, wanting Alvarez to explain instead of just doing his thing. I didn't say any of that out loud, just grabbed a rock and started piling like Alvarez, because at least that was working. That night, we sat around the tent, too tired to talk much. Kowalski was rubbing his lower back, quiet. Harper was rewriting his notebook with red flashlight. Alvarez was sharpening his E-tool with slow, rhythmic strokes, metal on stone, the only sound. Finally, Kowalski spoke up. "You guys ever feel like this place is picking us apart on purpose, like it knows exactly which buttons to push?" Harper didn't look up. "It's just environmental stress. We adapt or we don't." Alvarez paused to sharpening. "Sand doesn't know anything. It just is. We're the ones doing the picking." I didn't sleep again that night. Lay there thinking about how none of us were wrong exactly. Harper's systems would work great in a different environment. Kowalski's grit would carry him through a firefight. Alvarez's patience would keep him alive longer than any of us. And my need to fix things? Well, out here there was nothing to fix. Just endure. The desert wasn't judging any of us. It didn't have to. We were doing that to each other and to ourselves just fine.
They hit us with it on a morning that felt no different from the 10 before it. Same cold pre-dawn air, same red flashlights, same quiet on the line. We thought it was another movement to contact or patrol-based drill. We were wrong. Reyes stood in front of the platoon with a single sheet of paper in his hand. No map board, no sand table, no graphics. "At 06 a.m., your 4-man elements will move to grid," he read off a 10-digit grid, "where you will receive a mission packet. You have until 20 p.m. to complete the assigned task. No additional guidance, no resupply, no comms with higher. Questions?" No one raised a hand. We'd learned by then. We moved out in chalks, 20 minutes apart to avoid bunching. My team, me, Alvarez, Harper, Kowalski, humped the 4 clicks in silence. The grid turned out to be a shallow wadi with a single deuce and a half parked in it, tailgate down, a board specialist sitting on a crate. He handed Harper a sealed manila envelope and a folded map, then climbed in the cab and drove off without a word. Dust settled, and we were alone. Inside the envelope, 1 page, typed. "Mission: establish a temporary observation post capable of monitoring vehicle traffic along Route Blue, marked on map, for a minimum of 48 hours. You must remain undetected by OP4 patrols. You will report all traffic via runner to drop point Alpha at 12-hour intervals. Priority is continuity of observation. Secondary priority is survival of the team." That was it. No intel summary, no known enemy strength, no rules of engagement beyond the standing ones, no guidance on whether we could build a scrape, light a fire, cache water, or even stay in one place. Route Blue was a dirt track 15 clicks north, cutting through open desert with almost no cover. The map showed scattered low ridges and a couple dry washes, but nothing you'd call concealment. We spread the map on the ground and stared at it like it owed us money. Harper spoke first. "We need eyes on the route, continuous. That means at least 2 people awake at all times. Best terrain feature is Hill 212. He tapped a small rise about 3 clicks from the road. Gives us line of sight for 8 kilometers of the route. We dig in there, camouflage, run shifts." Alvarez tilted his head. "Hill 212 is the only terrain feature. Op4 will check it first. We'll be found in 6 hours. "So where then?" Harper asked, a little sharp. Alvarez traced a finger along a shallow wash that ran parallel to the route, 800 meters off. "Here, we move every 12 hours, stay mobile, use the wash for concealment. Harder to maintain continuous observation, but harder to get caught." Kowalski rubbed the back of his neck. "We could split the team. 2 guys static on the hill for eyes, 2 mobile in the wash for security and runners." I didn't say anything yet, just listened to them argue it out. Harper hated splitting the team, violated unity of command, complicated comms, even though we had none, increased risk to the static element. Alvarez pointed out putting all 4 on the obvious hill was suicide. Kowalski kept pushing the split idea because it felt aggressive, like we were still fighting instead of hiding. We went back and forth for an hour, water ticking down with every minute in the sun. Finally, I cut in. "There's no perfect option here. Hill gives best observation, but we get compromised fast. Wash gives concealment, but gaps in reporting. Split gives both, but risks half the team. Whatever we pick, something critical gets sacrificed." Harper looked at me like I'd stated the obvious. "So, which is the least bad?" "That's the point. They didn't give us a least bad. They gave us 3 ways to fail at something important." We ended up compromising. Worst possible choice. 2 on Hill 212 in a shallow scrape with camo netting, 2 in the wash 800 meters south with the radio and most of the water. We'd rotate every 12 hours. Felt balanced, felt wrong. The first 12 hours went okay. Harper and I took the hill. We dug like madmen, used local scrub and netting, kept a log of the 3 vehicles that passed, all civilian pickup trucks, no military. Kowalski sent a runner at 1800 p.m. with our notes. We ate cold MRE crackers, sipped warm water, whispered when we had to talk. Then the wind came up at dusk, hard. Netting started flapping, sand blowing into everything. By 2200, visibility was 50 meters and dropping. We couldn't see the route anymore. Observation continuity, gone. At 2 a.m., we heard engines. 2 Humvees moving slow, spotlights sweeping. Op4 night patrol. They stopped 300 meters from our hill, dismounted, started walking grids. We lay frozen under the netting, breathing through chamogs, hearts hammering. They came within 20 meters, lights washing over our position. One guy stopped, shone his light right on the scrape. I thought we were done. He moved on. Miracle or shit camouflage didn't matter. We lived. But then when dawn came, we were found anyway. Footprints we couldn't erase in the dark, a glint of an MRE spoon one of us dropped. Reyes himself walked up with 2 cadre, looked down at us in our hole. Compromised, pack it in. We humped back in silence, meeting Alvarez and Kowalski at the rally point. They'd stayed hidden, but missed 4 hours of observation because of the dust storm. No one had completed the mission fully. That night, no one got smoked, no one got yelled at. Reyes just had us turn in our notes and dismissed us. In the tent, Harper was furious, at the vague orders, at the weather, at the impossibility. Kowalski was quiet, staring at his boots. Alvarez cleaned his rifle, slow, methodical. I lay there thinking, they didn't want us to succeed. They wanted us to choose which part of the mission we were willing to lose, observation or concealment, team integrity or flexibility, and then live with the consequences. There was no right answer, only the one you could justify to yourself when it all went sideways. And I was starting to realize I didn't like the ones I'd been making.
It was one of those decisions that feels small in the moment, the kind you make without even realizing you're rolling the dice for everyone else. We'd been out on a 3-day patrol cycle, move at night, cache gear, and observe during the day, minimal signature. Water was down to 1 5-gallon can for the team again, plus whatever we'd cached earlier. We were on the last leg, 8 clicks back to the compound before full dark, when Reyes had warned us the final Op 4 sweep would be heaviest. The route back had 2 options. The short way, straight across a wide alluvial fan, flat, hard-packed, easy walking, but 0 cover. You'd be visible from 3 kilometers in any direction. The long way, detour north through a series of low ridges and washes, added 4 clicks, broken terrain, slower going, but you could move concealed almost the whole way. Harper wanted the short route. We're behind schedule, sun's dropping in 2 hours. We take the fan, we're inside the wire before last light. Risk of compromise is low. Op 4 is focused on the training areas farther west. Alvarez wanted the ridges. Short way's a kill zone if they have even 1 vehicle on overwatch. Long way costs us time and water, but we get back intact. Kowalski was neutral, too tired to argue. He just wanted to be done. I was team leader for that leg. Decision was mine. I looked at the map, then at the can, maybe 6 liters left for 4 guys carrying full kit in cooling but still brutal air. Temps had only dropped to the high 80s. We were all dragging, lips cracked, eyes sunk, moving slow. I thought about the extra 4 clicks in the dark over sharp rock, about how much water that would burn, about someone twisting an ankle or just bonking out completely. I chose the fan. Speed is security, I said, echoing something I'd heard in ranger school. We move fast, stay spaced, hit the compound before they even know we're coming. Alvarez didn't argue, just nodded once and adjusted his pack. We stepped out onto the open ground at 1700. The fan was exactly as advertised, smooth, firm underfoot, almost like walking on a road. For the first 2 clicks, we made great time. You could feel the relief in the team. Boots weren't sinking, no scrambling over rocks, just steady movement. Then the wind shifted. It came from the northwest, hard and steady, kicking up a wall of dust that cut visibility to a couple 100 meters. Good for us, I thought, even better cover than the ridges. We kept pushing. At the 4-click mark, the ground changed subtly. Hardpack gave way to softer silt without us noticing at first. Boots started sinking an inch or 2 with each step. Sweat came back. Then we hit the patch they must have known about, a wide stretch of fine, dry powder that hadn't seen rain in years, the kind that looks solid until 4 guys in full kit walk across it. We bogged. Not dramatically, no quicksand bullshit, just enough that every step took twice the effort. Calves burned. We spread out to distribute weight, but it didn't help much. Kowalski, heaviest by far, was sinking deepest, cursing under his breath with every pull. Water breaks became more frequent. Short sips turned into longer pulls. The can was going down fast. I kept us moving, telling myself we were still ahead of schedule, that the compound was only 4 clicks out. Then we heard the engine. Single vehicle, coming from the west, exactly the direction Harper had said was clear. Dust cloud rising above the haze. Humvee moving fast on a parallel track. They'd seen our footprints entering the fan. No way they hadn't. We dropped flat, tried to crawl to the edge where the ground firmed up again, but crawling in that powder was worse. Elbows and knees sunk, packs dragged. The Humvee closed to under a click, slowed, turned towards us. We weren't going to make cover. I made the call. Cache non-essential gear, travel light, bound to the north edge. Go. We dropped rucks, ammo, some food, the radio, even one guy's plates, buried them shallow under brush and dust. Grabbed weapons, remaining water, minimal stuff. Then we ran, staggered really, towards firmer ground 600 meters north. The Humvee reached our old position as we hit the edge. Horn blared twice, the signal for compromised. Reyes' voice over a bullhorn. Exercise terminate, return to cache site. We walked back in silence, collected our buried gear under the cadre's watching eyes. The Humvee crew didn't gloat, just waited while we repacked, then escorted us the rest of the way in. Back at the compound, no one got smoked right away. Just turn in weapons, draw water, chow, lights out. But the looks from the team, man, those stuck.
Kowalski wouldn't meet my eyes while we refilled canteens. Harper kept opening his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closing it. Alvarez just handed me the full canteen first, without a word. Later in the tent, Kowalski finally spoke. "We almost made it," he said. Not angry, just flat. "Yeah," I answered. "Almost." I wanted to explain that I'd weighed the risks, that speed seemed smarter, that the wind shift and the soft patch weren't predictable. I wanted to say I'd been trying to get us all home before someone dropped. But the desert had taken that excuse away the second the Humvee turned towards us. My call, my mistake. The team paid. I lay there in the dark, listening to the others breathe, feeling the weight of their silence heavier than any ruck. I'd thought I was making a tactical decision. Turned out I'd been gambling with their trust, and I'd lost.
After the mistake on the alluvial fan, the nights got longer. The temperature would plummet as soon as the sun disappeared, down into the 40s, sometimes lower. The wind picked up like it had been waiting all day for its turn. Sand hissed against the tent walls, found every gap, dusted your sleeping bag until you woke up tasting grit. We slept in everything we owned: fleece cap, gloves, wooby liner pulled tight, still cold. The kind of cold that settles in your joints and makes you wonder if you'll ever feel warm again. But the real chill wasn't the air. It was the quiet. During the day there was always noise, boots on gravel, weapons clacking, low voices giving orders, wind howling, your own pulse in your ears. At night it all stopped, just the tent flapping, the occasional cough from another rack, and the endless dark outside. You could lie there for hours staring at the canvas above you, watching shadows shift as the moon moved, and feel completely alone, even with 7 other guys breathing in the same space. I stopped sleeping much after that day on the fan. I'd close my eyes and replay the decision, the map in my head, the canteen sloshing lighter than it should, the way the ground looked solid right up until it wasn't. I'd hear the Humvee engine again, feel the drop in my gut when the horn blared. I'd imagine different choices, taking the ridges, slowing the pace, caching water earlier, and wonder if any of them would have changed the outcome or just delayed the inevitable. Mostly, I wondered why I'd been so sure speed was the answer. Was it for the team, or was it because I didn't want to be the guy who brought us in late, who admitted we were too beat down to push hard? I kept coming back to the same ugly thought. I'd chosen the risk because I didn't want to look weak. Across the tent I could make out Kowalski's shape, big lump under the liner, motionless. He hadn't said much to me in 2 days. Not hostile, just distant, like he was still deciding whether he could trust my calls anymore. Harper had gone full notebook mode, writing pages by red light every night, analyzing every evolution like there was a formula we were missing. Alvarez slept like a rock most nights, but sometimes I'd catch him awake too, sitting up with his back against the tent pole, staring at nothing. One night the wind was particularly bad, gusts shaking the whole frame, sand coming through the seams like smoke. Couldn't sleep anyway, so I pulled on my boots and stepped outside to take a leak. The sky was ridiculous. No light pollution for 100 miles, stars packed so thick it looked fake. Milky Way cutting a white scar across everything. Cold bit hard, but the air felt clean for once, no dust in your lungs. Alvarez was already out there, leaning against the ammo crate we used as a step, smoking half a cigarette he'd been saving. "Couldn't sleep either?" I asked. He shrugged. "Wind's loud tonight." We stood there a minute, passing the smoke back and forth. "You still thinking about the fan?" he asked, direct. No bullshit. "Yeah." He nodded, like that was enough. "Back home, my uncle used to take me out hunting in the canyons. Told me the desert doesn't care if you're right or wrong. It only cares if you're still standing when the sun comes up. Being wrong doesn't kill you. Staying wrong does." I didn't answer right away. Just took a drag and watched the glow. I thought I was making the smart play. Save water, save time, get us home. "You were making the play that kept you in control," he said. Not accusing, just stating. Difference. I felt that one land. We finished the cigarette in silence.
Then he flicked the butt into the sand and ground it out with his boot. Tomorrow's another day. Sand doesn't hold grudges. He went back inside. I stayed out a little longer, looking at those stars, feeling small in a way I hadn't since basic. All my experience, all the schools and deployments, and I was still making rookie mistakes because my ego didn't like the idea of going slow. The cold finally drove me back in. I crawled into the bag and lay there, listening to the wind die down around 3 a.m. For the first time in days, I didn't replay the fan. I just thought about what Alvarez said. The desert wasn't trying to break me. I was doing that part myself, one proud decision at a time. And the nights weren't finished with me yet.
It happened on a morning that felt like every other. Cold gray light leaking through the tent flaps, the smell of sweat-soaked canvas, and instant coffee from the cadre tent. We'd just come off a 36-hour patrol with no sleep, minimal water, and another partial failure. Lost eyes on the objective for 4 hours because of a dust storm we didn't predict. Everyone was raw. I was cleaning my rifle outside the tent, sitting on an ammo crate, trying to get the last of the sand out of the star chamber with a bore brush. Reyes walked past on his usual slow circuit of the lines. He didn't stop often. When he did, it was never good. He stopped in front of me. I kept brushing, waiting for the correction, the smoke session, whatever was coming. Nothing came for a long minute. Just him standing there, hands behind his back, watching me work. Finally he spoke. "You still think you're the smartest guy in your element." Not a question. A statement. Low, flat, no heat in it. I stopped brushing, looked up. His eyes were the same faded color as always, but closer up they looked more tired than I'd noticed before, like he'd seen this exact conversation play out 50 times. "No, Sergeant Major," I said. Old habit, deny and deflect. He didn't blink. "You keep making decisions that protect your picture of yourself. Fast route on the fan so you don't look slow, split the team on the OP so you look flexible, jump in on water shares so you look selfless. You're not leading them, you're managing how they see you." I felt my face get hot, even in the cold air. Wanted to argue, wanted to list the reasons, time hacks, terrain analysis, risk to the mission, but the words felt thin before I even said them. He kept going. "This place isn't here to make you better at tactics. Tactics you can learn in a classroom. It's here to show you what you do when the classroom runs out, when there's no good option left, when you're tired and thirsty and scared you'll be exposed as average." I stayed quiet. He looked out across the compound for a second. Empty sand, low buildings, nothing moving. "You haven't learned the lesson yet." That was all. He walked away, didn't wait for a response, didn't offer advice, encouragement, nothing. Just left me sitting there with a half-cleaned bolt carrier in my hands. I sat there a long time, long enough that the sun came up and started warming the metal in my lap, long enough that Alvarez walked by, glanced at me, and kept going without asking. Reyes was right. I hated that he was right. Every call I'd made out here had some layer of self-protection in it. Not obvious, nothing like cowardice or laziness, but subtle. I didn't want to be the guy who chose the safe, slow route and got called cautious. Didn't want to be the one who couldn't fix a problem when it showed up. Didn't want the team looking at me like I didn't have the answers. I'd been leading to protect an image, not to get us through. And the worst part, the desert knew it before I did. It just kept putting me in positions where the image cracked a little more each time. I finished cleaning the rifle, slow, methodical, no hurry. Then I went and found Harper, Kowalski, Alvarez. Told them I'd been making calls for the wrong reasons. Didn't dramatize it, didn't ask forgiveness, just said it straight. Kowalski nodded once, like he'd been waiting for it. Harper closed his notebook without writing anything. Alvarez just said, "Good." No hugging it out, no speeches, but something shifted after that, small, almost invisible. I stopped trying to have the answer first, started listening longer. When we planned the next movement, I asked what they thought before I said what I thought. Reyes never mentioned the conversation again, never acknowledged the change. He didn't need to. He'd said his piece.
The rest was on me.
Something quiet happened after Reyes called me out. It wasn't dramatic, no team circle, no speeches, no let's turn this around moment. We just stopped talking so much and started watching. The next evolution was a night movement, 12 clicks to a rally point, insert a cache, exfil before first light. Same restrictions, limited water, no comms, full kit. We sat in the sand under red lights to plan. Before, I would have started laying out the route, assigning sectors, setting the pace. Harper would have pulled out his notebook and started quoting intervals from the manual. Kowalski would have volunteered for point or drag to prove he was still in the fight. This time, nobody jumped in first. We spread the map, looked at it for a long minute. Then Alvarez spoke, soft, almost like he was thinking out loud. Winds out of the west tonight. Dust will cover noise, but it'll erase our tracks slow. We can use the big wash for the first 6 clicks, stay low, save energy. After that, it pinches, have to climb the ridge anyway. Harper didn't argue doctrine, just traced the contour lines with his finger. Ridge is exposed on the east side at dawn. If we're still on it when light hits, we're skyline. Better to push harder in the wash, get to the cache earlier, be off the ridge by 04 a.m. Kowalski leaned in, looked at the water can. That pace means we burn more early. I'm heaviest, gonna sweat more. If we keep the can central till the ridge, I take smaller pulls up front, bigger if I'm dragging on the climb. I didn't add anything for a second, just listened to them build the plan piece by piece. When there was a gap, I only asked questions. Who's best on land nav if the dust gets thick? Alvarez tapped his own chest without ego. Who carries the cache tools so weight's balanced? Kowalski volunteered for the E-tool and shovel. His frame could handle it. We moved out at 2200 hours. It wasn't perfect. The wash had deeper sand than we thought. Boots sank. Calves burned early. Wind shifted halfway. Dust got in our eyes, made the red lenses useless for a while. But we adjusted without words. Slowed the pace when Kowalski started breathing heavy. Harper took point for a stretch when Alvarez needed to check bearings. I carried the can longer than my share when someone else's hands shook too much to trust the pour. We hit the cache site at 3:30 a.m., 30 minutes ahead of our adjusted timeline. Dug fast, quiet, buried it deep with local rocks for camouflage. Exfilled down the backside of the ridge while the sky was still black. No OPOFR contact, tracks mostly gone by morning. When we got back to the compound at 6 a.m., Reyes was waiting with the cadre truck. He looked at our filthy uniforms, the empty canteen, the tired but steady way we walked. He didn't say good or bad, just nodded once and told us to rack out. Later that day, during a short stand-down, we sat in the shade of the tent awning eating cold MREs. Nobody bragged about the movement. Nobody analyzed what could have gone better. Kowalski broke the silence first. Felt different last night. Harper nodded, mouthful of pound cake. Yeah, less noise. Alvarez smiled, small, rare. We moved like we belonged out there for once. I didn't say much, just felt it. We weren't suddenly experts. The desert could still crush us tomorrow. But for the first time, when we made decisions, they came from what the ground and the team actually needed, not from who wanted to sound smart or tough or in charge. The ego had stepped back. Not gone, probably never gone, but quiet enough that we could hear each other over it. And in a place that punishes noise more than almost anything else, that was starting to feel like real strength.
They never told us it was coming. No warning, no special briefing, no this one counts more than the others. Just another dawn formation, same flat voice from Reyes. 4-man elements, full kit, 1 5-gallon can, grid at the rally point in 20 mics. Move. We figured it was another long patrol with the usual twists. We were wrong. We hit the rally point, an empty wadi 10 clicks out, and found only a single envelope taped to a stake in the ground. No cadre waiting, no truck, no specialist with a bored face. Just the envelope and a folded map. Inside, one paragraph. Your team is a recon element cut off after contact. Hire is 48 hours away at best. You have what you carry. Primary objective, survive and return to friendly lines, compound, with all personnel and sensitive items intact. Secondary, gather and report any useful intel on OP4 patterns en route. No further guidance. Begin when ready. That was it. We looked at each other. No time hack, no resupply, no scripted OP4 sweeps we could game. Just us, the desert, and whatever we'd learned in the last weeks. We didn't talk much at first, just spread the map, checked the can, full 20 liters, weighed and sealed, and took stock. Everyone's boots were already wearing thin. Kowalski had a blister the size of a quarter on his heel he hadn't bitched about. Harper's left knee was swelling from an old twist. Alvarez was fine, as usual. I had a low-grade headache from dehydration debt I hadn't paid off yet. We picked a route together without debate. Follow the big wash system northwest for cover. Cut across 2 low ridges at night to avoid skylining. Aim for a spring seep marked on the map that might, or might not, have water this late in the season. Pace would be slow, deliberate. Water centralized, issued by Alvarez because he burned it slowest and had the steadiest hand. We moved out at 09 a.m. under full sun. The first day was brutal, but manageable. Heat topped out at 118. We moved in bounds, one pair resting in whatever shadow existed while the other leapfrogged ahead to scout. Stopped every hour for feet check, salt tabs, micro sips. No one pushed for speed, no one hoarded water. Night brought cold and wind, but we'd expected it. Poncho liners tied together for a low shelter, bodies close for warmth. Kowalski took first watch without being asked. Harper plotted our next leg by starlight, no red lens, just to save batteries. Second day, things started sliding. The seep on the map was dry. Cracked mud ringed with old animal tracks, nothing more. We'd counted on topping off there. Now the math got ugly. 16 liters left for 4 guys, minimum 30 clicks still to go, temps climbing again. We sat in the shade of a rock overhang and looked at the can without panic, just fact. Alvarez did the numbers out loud. 4 liters for man if we stretch to 72 hours. Less if we push hard, more if someone starts cramping. Kowalski rubbed his heel, finally showed us the blister, raw, oozing. I can keep up, just tape it better. Harper's knee was worse, swollen tight against his pants. He could walk, but not fast. I felt the old urge rise, make a bold call, sacrifice something dramatic, take the risk to get us home faster. I opened my mouth to suggest cutting weight, dumping non-essentials, pushing through the open ground at night. Then I shut it. I looked at them, at Kowalski trying not to limp, Harper flexing his knee and wincing, Alvarez as calm as ever, and asked instead, "What's the play that keeps all 4 of us moving tomorrow?" Alvarez answered first. "Slow down. Short bounds, longer rests in shade. Except we get in late. Water stays central. We carry Kowalski's ruck weight distributed if his foot goes south." Harper nodded. "I'll take drag. Less stress on the knee going downhill. We contour the ridges instead of climbing straight over. Adds distance, but saves legs." Kowalski looked at me. "I'm not quitting, but if I drop, you leave the ruck, not me." We agreed. No drama. That afternoon, we moved slower than ever, sometimes 800 meters an hour. But we moved, and something happened I didn't expect. Around 16 p.m., wind died completely, dead calm. Heat shimmered off the ground like a lake. Kowalski started weaving on his feet, face gray under the dust, heat exhaustion creeping in. We stopped in the only shade,
A shallow overhang barely big enough for two. No discussion. Alvarez and I laid him down, elevated his feet on a ruck, and poured a capful of water on his neck pulses. Harper loosened his boots, checked the blister. Bad, but not infected yet. Kowalski tried to sit up. "I'm good. Keep moving." "Shut up," I said. Not mean, just final. We stayed there 2 hours, gave him the lion's share of the next water issue, talked low about nothing. Chicago winters, Arizona canyons, whatever, to keep his mind off it. When we moved again at dusk, he was steady enough, not strong, but upright. And for the first time out here, I didn't think about the mission clock or how it would look if we came in late. I just thought, he's still walking. We're still walking. We made the compound on 04 a.m. on the 4th day, ragged, down to 3 liters of water, uniforms stiff with salt and sand, Kowalski limping hard but on his own feet. Reyes was sitting on the tailgate of a truck, drinking coffee from a steel mug. He looked us over slow, eyes stopping on Kowalski's foot, Harper's knee, the near-empty can. He didn't say good work, didn't say anything for a long minute. Then he stood up, tossed the coffee dregs into the sand. "Rack out," he said. "Chow at 6 a.m." That was all. But walking back to the tent, Kowalski slung an arm over my shoulder for balance. Not dramatic, just to take weight off the bad foot. "Thanks for not leaving me," he said quietly. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. For the first time out here, I hadn't even considered it.
We thought it was over after that last evolution. 4 days out, barely any water, everyone limping in together. We figured we'd passed whatever invisible test they'd been running. Chow came, hot for once. Real eggs, real coffee. We ate in silence, too tired to talk, then racked out for 14 hours straight. When we woke, the compound felt different. No reveille at 04:30 a.m., no cadre walking the lines, just the wind and the usual heat building. We wandered out to the assembly area around 9 a.m., expecting a final AAR, maybe some certificates, a bus ride out. Reyes was there, alone, sitting on an ammo crate with a folder in his lap. No other instructors, no truck idling. The rest of the platoon trickled in, confused. He waited until we were all seated in the sand. No formation, just a loose semicircle like we were kids at story time. "This is the last formation," he said. "No graduation, no patches, no photos. You leave tomorrow morning, same way you came in." A couple guys shifted, waiting for the butt. He opened the folder, pulled out a single sheet, looked at it like he was reading it for the first time, even though we all knew he'd written it. "You've been asking, some of you out loud, most in your heads, what the point of this place is. You thought it was desert warfare training, long-range recon in arid environments, vehicle ops in soft sand, heat injury prevention, water discipline, all the blocks you can check on a slide deck." He paused, looked around at us. It's not. You could feel the air change. Guys leaned forward. "This course has one objective, and it's never been about the desert. The desert is just a tool. The objective is to put you in a controlled environment where every advantage you normally have, technology, firepower, air support, resupply, clear orders, good intel, is stripped away, where the only thing left is you, your decisions, and the people next to you." He let that sit. "You've all been through schools where the goal is to make you better warriors, faster, stronger, more lethal. This place doesn't care if you can shoot, move, or communicate better than you arrived. It cares whether you collapse when there's no longer any external structure holding you up." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Every evolution was designed to force a choice between mission success and team survival, between doctrinal perfection and practical reality, between your personal image and the group's well-being. We watched what you chose when you thought no one was grading, when failing didn't mean recycle, just meant living with it. Harper's mouth was actually open a little. Kowalski stared at the ground. Alvarez just nodded slow, like he'd suspected all along.
We don't send reports on your marksmanship scores or land nav times. We send reports on how you reacted when the plan failed, when water ran out, when someone weaker slowed you down, when your ego told you to push harder and your body told you to stop. Because that's what real desert war looks like. Not the tactics, but the erosion. The slow grind that turns good units into ghosts if the human part isn't solid. He closed the folder. Some of you figured it out early and adapted. Some fought it the whole way. Most did both on different days. That's normal. The point isn't to create perfect soldiers. It's to expose the cracks before the real thing widens them into breaks. He stood up. You won't get an evaluation sheet. You won't get told if you passed or failed. You'll carry it yourself. If you ever do end up in a real desert fight, doesn't matter which one, you'll know exactly where your limits are, and more importantly, you'll know whether the guys next to you will still be there when you hit them. He looked at us one last time. That's all this place has to give. The rest is on you. Then he walked away. No salute, no any questions, just back to the low building that served as cadre quarters, door closing behind him. We sat there a long time. No one cheered, no one complained. We just absorbed it. I thought about every decision I'd made out here. The fan route, the water shares, the OP split, the slow crawl home on the last evolution. I'd spent weeks beating myself up for the failures. Now I realized the failures were the curriculum. This wasn't a course to teach us how to beat the desert. It was a course to teach us how to stop beating ourselves when the desert started winning. And the twist, the real gut punch, was that we'd all graduated the moment we stopped pretending we were above it.
The buses showed up at 05 a.m. 2 unmarked white coaches with tinted windows, engines idling low in the cold. No markings, no unit insignia. Same way we'd arrived, only now we were quieter. We'd packed the night before. Gear cleaned, rifles turned in, personal stuff stuffed into duffels that looked a lot lighter than when we came. No one talked much. No jokes, no war stories, no thank God it's over. Just the scrape of boots on gravel and the occasional cough. Reyes stood by the gate, that same chain link with razor wire that didn't look like a gate at all. He didn't give his speech, didn't shake hands, just watched as we filed past, eyes scanning faces like he was cataloging what he saw. When my turn came, he met my look for a second longer than the others, gave the smallest nod, barely movement. I nodded back. That was it. We boarded without assigned seats. I ended up near the back. Kowalski dropped into the seat next to me, wincing as his blistered foot hit the floorboard. Harper sat across the aisle, notebook finally closed and stowed. Alvarez took a window seat a row ahead, staring out at the compound as we pulled away. The sun was just coming up, same blood-red light that had painted the dunes every morning. The place looked smaller from the bus window, almost ordinary. Low buildings half swallowed by sand, tents flapping one last time in the breeze, camouflage netting sagging like old skin. Then the road curved and it was gone. No one took pictures. Phones were still locked up in the cadre safe. We drove in silence for the first hour. The AC kicked in, cold and loud after weeks without it. Guys started peeling off layers, fleece caps, gloves, jackets stiff with dried sweat. The bus began to smell like unwashed bodies finally thawing out. Kowalski leaned his head against the window. "Feels weird," he said quietly, "like we're sneaking out." "Yeah." He rubbed his heel absently. "Thought there'd be something. A certificate, a coin, hell, even a good job." I shrugged. "Place doesn't do that." He thought about it. "Guess it doesn't need to." Harper spoke up from across the aisle, voice low. "I keep thinking about what Reyes said, about the cracks." Alvarez turned in his seat. "You still writing in that notebook?" Harper shook his head. "Threw it out last night." We all looked at him. Wasn't anything in there I needed anymore. The bus hit pavement eventually, asphalt smooth under the tires instead of gravel and sand. The ride got quieter. Guys started dozing off, heads against windows, mouths open. Exhaustion finally cashing the check we'd been riding for weeks. I stayed awake, watching the desert slide by. Joshua trees started appearing, then gas stations, billboards,
civilization creeping back in like it had never been gone. I didn't feel tougher, didn't feel like a better soldier in the way I'd expected, like I could ruck farther or shoot straighter or recite heat injury symptoms faster. None of that had changed much. What had changed was simpler and heavier. I knew exactly where I was weak now, where pride still lived in my decisions, where I had sacrificed the team to save my own picture of myself. And I knew how it felt to choose differently, to slow down, to listen, to carry someone else's weight when my own legs were shaking. I wasn't stronger. I was just less likely to break in the ways that matter most. The desert hadn't made me invincible. It had made me honest. We hit the airfield around noon, processed out quick. IDs checked, phones returned, a short debrief from some major we'd never seen before who thanked us for our participation and reminded us of the NDAs we'd signed. Then we scattered to different flights, different posts, different lives. I shook hands with Kowalski, real grip, no backslap bullshit. Harper gave a nod that felt like respect. Alvarez just said, "Stay in touch," and meant it. I haven't seen any of them since. But sometimes when I'm making a call under pressure, whether it's in the field or just life, I catch myself pausing longer, listening harder, asking what the team needs instead of what looks strong. And I know where that habit came from. A place with no name, out in the middle of sand and silence, that never welcomed any of us, and never needed to.
It's been years now, long enough that the details have softened around the edges, the exact grids, the day-by-day sequence, even some of the faces, but the feel of the place stayed. Not like a memory you pull out and polish, more like scar tissue. Quiet, permanent, useful when you press on it. I didn't come back a different person in any loud way. No sudden wisdom, no speeches to new guys about the suck that changed me. I went back to regular units, deployments, the usual cycle. But certain things shifted, slow and underneath, like sand settling after wind. Decision-making changed first. Back in garrison, then later downrange, I caught myself pausing longer when plans got tight. Where I used to jump in with the smart fix, the aggressive maneuver, the bold timeline, I started asking more questions. What's the cost if this goes wrong? Who pays it? Is this about the mission or about me not wanting to look hesitant? It didn't make me softer. It made me harder to break. Team stuff changed too. I stopped needing to be the one who carried the heaviest load to prove I was still pulling weight. Stopped needing to have the last word in planning to feel in control. When a younger guy ran low on something, water, sleep, confidence, I didn't fix it for him right away. I just made sure he wasn't alone with it. Sometimes that meant giving him my share. Sometimes it meant letting him figure the math himself so he'd trust it next time. Kowalski's voice still pops into my head when pressure builds. Thanks for not leaving me. I never talked to him again after we split at the airfield, but I've paid that debt forward more times than I can count. Even the small habits stuck. I drink water different now, slow, deliberate, even when it's cold and plentiful. I feel heat different, respect it faster, don't bargain with it. When wind picks up and dust starts flying, I don't curse it anymore. I just adjust. And nights in the field, I sleep lighter, but better, because I know the thoughts that don't sleep aren't the enemy. They're the early warning system. The desert never taught me how to win. It taught me how not to lose myself trying. That's what I carried out of there. Not a patch, not a story for the bar, not some heroic glow. Just a clearer view of my own weak points, and the quiet knowledge that I can work around them without pretending they aren't there. Sometimes driving through empty country on leave, some stretch of highway cutting through red dirt and scrub, I'll feel it for a second. That dry, patient silence pressing in from all sides. And I'll think, yeah, I know you. You don't scare me anymore. Not because I beat you, but because I finally learned to stop fighting you the wrong way. The desert doesn't teach you how to conquer it. It teaches you how to keep yourself intact when everything else is trying to take you apart, piece by careful piece. And man, that's enough.